Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name's Corey, and in this video, we are going to be talking about the latest episode from The Bad Batch. So, hey, Vic.
Hey, Corey.
Let's break this down.
Here we go. All right, guys. This week's episode of The Bad Batch, it was a story. Which some of us have been longing to see, and what some of us are going, okay, that's a thing that happened. And I'm guessing by the reactions that we have today, you know which side I'm on, and you know which side Corey's on. This is definitely a story that I've been waiting to see, that I didn't know I wanted to see until last episode when they brought Hera Syndulla into the Bad Batch, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're gonna actually give us like her backstory. Like, we're getting to see Hera's origin story, and that's like learning the origin story of a very, very popular and really good character in the Star Wars mythos that you haven't seen before, and you had to kind of speculate on what happened, is huge in the Star Wars, super fan world. But I do see your point in when we were talking about it offline. You were like, yeah, it was an okay episode, and I do see your point in that, but I will give you my opinion as to why it's so much more than just a good episode based on my knowledge of it. After we talk about the episode. So in this episode,
just as a clarification for those that are wondering, I've never seen the Clone Wars. I've never watched Rebels. So I've got no knowledge of some of these characters.
Right.
And unfortunately, we weren't able to record last week, so we didn't talk about last week's episode. But I told him offline that I felt like it was an episode that happened to include the Bad Batch. I mean, it was an episode that revolved around characters for some of us who have never watched that stuff that are brand new, and the Bad Batch just happened to be side characters that showed up in this episode and helped.
Last episode. This episode, and then integral.
Right, and then this episode was a continuation of that. Mm-hmm. So in itself, you could actually kind of take the two episodes and kind of put them as standalones if you wanted to.
Only from your perspective, though.
From my perspective,
right,
yeah.
Right.
But in a sense, too, is like maybe you can even fit this episode into whatever show that they were originally in, whether it be Clone Wars or Rebels. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah, well, it's both, kind of.
See, you could fit them in there, and then they fit just fine. So, from your standpoint, it's great. From my standpoint, it's like, it's just another side mission. Yeah. However, I think this episode actually helped move on the Bad Batch story a little bit more, more so than the previous episode, because some of the things we saw with Crosshair and some of this, the clones, which we'll talk about,
right?
Dropping their guns, and being taken captive. So, it kind of fits both stories. For me, I mean, I felt like it was just kind of like an all right episode. It wasn't, the greatest, but let's get into it. Let's get into and talk about what's going on here.
All right. Well, in this episode, Hera gets a hold of Omega and asks her to bring the Bad Batch back to help her rescue her parents. She's hiding out in their old rebellion hideout. So Hunter is like, no, we're not going back there. Like, it's not our fight. It's not worth the risk. Like, we could get caught. You could get caught. And the main objective we have is to keep Omega safe at this point, because they realize that not only the Empire, but also the Kaminoans are after her. But Omega talks them into going back for her, and after they kind of meet up and give them the coordinates, which again they manage to fly right into the mouth of the beast, and no one stops them. So they fly in, they get to the secret hideout, and she talks to him.
I want to say something about the message that she sent
Okay.
because it
Yeah,
very much looked
the
like Princess Leia.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the same time, though, and I had a problem with this in New Hope as well too. Like, why is it okay? In this one here, the camera you see her, but it looked ultimately the camera would have been at the side of her instead of face on, which is what I think that we should have seen. I feel like that they set that up when they were animating. Yes. When they were animated, they set it up wrong, just like they did in New Hope. Because I feel like the camera should have been straight on instead of seeing them from the side as they're talking.
So here's the deal. Think about the fact that everything is recorded in 3D in the Star Wars universe. So when you are looking at a image of a recording of someone, you're looking and they can see it from all three sides. So when we're looking at what's going on, we're not looking at it from the angle of the droid that's projecting it. We're looking at it from the side as the viewer or the other person in the room.
But how does the camera do that, though?
Because you're a fly on the wall.
The camera's stationary though. It's on the droid.
You're a fly on the wall. So the droid is here. Okay, so let me.
I understand the concept.
The droid is here, right? And when it's recording,
I can't see you.
That's fine. When it's recording, you'll see it when you go put it up. When you're recording, the droid is looking at you. You're like, "Hey, I need you to come get me, help me." But it's recording me in 3D, right? So then the droid is sitting, a Gunky is standing there going, looking at, say, Omega, right? So Omega, when she's looking at it from the rear because the droid is looking at her. So she's seeing the back end of the thing. We're standing on the opposite side of her, looking at it from the left side. Hunter was looking from the right side, and Tech and Echo were looking from behind the droid. So they would have seen her face. We're seeing the sides of her, and Echo and Omega would have been seeing it from behind. Because it's a 3D recording, so everyone's seeing it at the same time. No, I mean, look. Okay, so for example, in episode 1, when they use the disc that they talk to each other on, you see that 3D model of what you're seeing because that thing is projecting it straight up from the bottom up, and you have it oriented looking at it. When it was recorded, whatever they recorded it with was looking directly at him. That's why you're only seeing his face on the front side of him, but it is a 3D image. So depending on where you're looking at it is what orients what side of you're looking at. So you're looking at that part of that 3D image.
If you say so. I stick with the fact that they screwed up and they are hoping nobody notices.
Okay, well that's definitely not what happened. But anyway, no. But the parallel to the New Hope thing was definitely 100% what they were going for, because even her stoop position, talking to Chopper, and sending the message, and then her stopping the message, reaching out and stopping the message, that was 100% Obi-Wan. You're my only hope. In most definite terms. So where was I?
So they fly in.
Okay, so yeah, they get there, and still, now that they're there, Hera still has to kind of convince him to do it. He has to convince Hunter, and she's like, "My parents have money; they'll pay you." And then they're like, "Okay, well, they're mercenaries now, so that makes sense. Like, sure, we'll do the job. You're going to pay us." And then as things got more hectic, she's like, "We'll pay you double. Just get the job done." Yeah. So they come up with a plan. Hera and Omega, Tech and Wrecker attack the new Imperial refinery on Ryloth as a distraction, so that Hunter and Echo can get in and free Cham and Eleni and I forgot what the uncle's name is.
I don't remember half these people's names.
In order to get them out of the capital where they've been imprisoned. The plan basically is sneak in with a shipment of Rylothians. and Blendin walk up to one of the cannon turrets and disable it. Because those turrets would keep them from being able to get into the Capitol, because that's like their defense system. So this scene where you see Chopper kind of jump into line with the other astromechs, and he's like, just ignore me, I'm not really here, it's okay. And then he like kind of skirts off to the side, and then once he gets past the checkpoint where they were checking everybody, he like uses his rocket thruster to jump back in line before anyone notices. All of that is like prime Chopper from Rebels, and you think he's just kind of learned this as while he was working with Hera as a rebel, but you find out that like he's been kind of like this super like adventure droid from the get-go. So that's what I'm saying, like these little things that you learn in this episode, for someone who's seen these episodes obviously, makes it a little more exciting to watch, at least for me. So they infiltrate the area, they get there, Chopper takes out another astromech droid by freaking tasing him, which is one of his favorite moves. He loves tasing people. And he gets in there. He tries to slice the controls and ends up getting caught. And Omega and Hera have to take action in their own hands and take matters in their own hand. And they end up stealing a shuttle and blowing up the controls panel and disabling the turrets. And then they get their first chance to actually pilot a ship, just the two of them, and that's what both of their both of their dreams is to be pilots. And we know from the ensuing story of Rebels that Hera becomes one of the best like rebellion pilots / smugglers in the business. So this is kind of like the kicking off point for that character's arc into becoming a pilot, which really dictates her entire story throughout Star Wars. So once Crosshair actually realized, he's like, dude, this is a distraction. Like, they're not here. We're not going. We shouldn't go to the refinery. They're gonna come here. And of course, the idiot Rampart. I don't know what his actual title is, whether he's a commander or whatever, but Rampart, who's the one who created the new Imperial Social Security ID system, he's becoming a jackass.
I think he always has been.
No, because like when it first started out, like when we first saw him, when he first kind of walked up to Tarkin, he's like, "Hey, I've implemented the chain code program. It's working really well here. The people seem to be okay with it." And he seemed like he's just like, "Okay, I'm going to do what I've been ordered to do. I'm going to make this work. I'm trying to do my job." But he didn't seem as much like a jackass as he does at this point. In every episode we see him, he gets increasingly more into the Imperial ideology, is what I think it is. I think he started out as like a soldier. I'm doing my orders. I'm following my orders. I do what I'm told. Now he's at the point where like, I'm better than these people, and he didn't seem to be like that before, in my opinion. But
he's keeping it low key.
Well, maybe he was, but he's not anymore. Now he's just he's like mini Tarkin. Mm-hmm. He's trying to become the mini Tarkin. But they can't, they're taking the refinery in order to cause the Empire issues. So he's still taking it personally rather than listening to Crosshair, who is the military mind in the room, because this guy is not. He's basically a politician playing soldier, and he's like, this is a distraction. We need to be here. And he's like, I'm staying, and Jackass flies off to go try to take out whoever's destroying the refinery. And as he goes for it, of course, Omega and everybody else fly away while he's distracted, as Crosshair said. Meanwhile, Crosshair's like, I'm going to set a trap. I know they're coming. I know they're going to be here. And Hunter and Echo have already gotten there. Meanwhile, Captain Hauser, who was...
Not to be confused with Doogie Howser.
Correct. He is like you guys need to like chill out. Like he wants everyone to calm the f down. He's like, we don't need to like. There's no way he murdered the chancellor. Like Cham's not that guy. He's fought to protect his people. He wouldn't kill his own people. That's not who this guy is. And he's like, well, it doesn't matter who he is. He's a problem. We need to take care of him. And Hauser's like, that's not what I'm here for. Like, we came here to liberate these people and to save them from the separatists. We've done our jobs, and our job is to protect the Ralothians. It's not to imprison them for things that they didn't do. And of course, Rampart's like, just, a good soldier follows orders, and he walks away. And he's like, and you can tell he's not sure how to handle this because his orders were to protect these people. And now this guy's telling him your orders are to hurt these people. So obviously it's a little confusing as to what he really feels he's supposed to do. But that part of that storyline goes back to Clone Wars, because in a couple episodes of Clone Wars, we get to see them. We get to see Anakin and Obi-Wan and the clone troopers go to Ryloth to liberate them from the Separatist army who was holding them hostage. They get there and they leave those clone troopers there in order to protect them from any further reprisals from the Separatists. So they've been there that entire time, living with and protecting those people. And then the Emperor, in like a matter of days, has come in and said, hey, we're subjugating these people. They're no longer under our protection, but they're under our rule, and you need to make them kneel. And he's not down with that because that's not what he was supposed to do. And the Order 66 kind of, we are in control. Nobody can, anyone who goes against us is a traitor, and they are sentenced to instant death. Because despite the fact that Order 66 was designed to, which was basically the kill command for destroy all Jedi, it also has a component to it that anyone who resists that order is a traitor and they need to die. And we've seen that play out with both Crosshair as well as with Wrecker when he went after Omega, and he's like, you're a traitor to, Order 66, you're a traitor, blah, blah, blah. Right. So all of these things kind of work in. So Hauser is basically, he's like, I don't want to do this. And because he's loyal to Cham Syndulla, he's like, I need to get these guys out of here. I need to save them. And I need to get my brothers to understand that this is not right. And as Crosshair's trap is basically being set, he's like, they're gonna come out this door. I know my brothers. I know what they're gonna do, which he does, because that is exactly what they were about to do. The blast door opens up and Hauser's standing there, and they're like, what are you doing here? And he's like, brothers, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, we've been sent here to protect these people, and now they want us to destroy these people. This is not right. You need to band with me and protect our charges. And he's like, if you stand with me. And a number of them drop their weapons. And that right there.
And then they were all taken hostage.
But that right there tells you in the storyline that Order 66 can be resisted because they haven't lost their inhibitor chips. So they can make a personal choice to fight it, and apparently they either never received Order 66 and don't know that it's a thing and they still have 100% free will, or they've resisted it and it just doesn't work anymore. Or what I really think may be the thing is those inhibitor chips weren't meant to last as long as they are. So those guys who have made it from the beginning of the war to this point, those inhibitor chips were probably designed like, these guys are going to die. We don't need to have them last forever. We just need to have it last until they die, and or until they get killed in war. But now that it's not quite war anymore, I think that those inhibitor chips may be wearing off. They may be able to fight them because they don't have as much control over them anymore.
Or the other possibility is that those ones that gave up aren't actually clones. Because they never took their helmets off, so you don't know.
So the clones, well, there is, because the clones still have the standard clone armor, where the conscriptees have a different armor on. The ones that are working with Crosshair, they have a slightly different armor on. The helmet is different, and the actual armor plating as well as the color are all different. So right. You can definitely tell which ones are which. But I think that there's another option that maybe the Kaminoans disabled the inhibitor chips because if the Empire is planning on dropping them, then there's no reason why the Kaminoans should maintain the clone army for them anymore and control the clone army for them anymore. Because despite the fact that they follow the orders of the Empire at this point, they still have the override. The Kaminoans can override anything with them if they want to. So they could actually just disable the inhibitor chips from Kamino, and then that would cause mass craziness, which I think should be what they do by the end of this story, is to release all of the clones from the inhibitor and let them start making their own decisions. And at that point, they're all going to kind of turn on the Empire, which is what I would do.
All their heads will explode because they won't know what to do. They've been under so much, so many orders. Yeah. Now to be able to do it on their own, they're like, I don't know what to do. What do I do?
So he basically turns himself into Crosshair, and he's like, hey, yeah, they got away. And Crosshair's like, fuck, I knew this was gonna happen. He's like, I told you this was gonna happen. And as they all get away, Rampart's like, oh man, I underestimated the Bad Batch. He's like, we thought they weren't a problem. Just like, I mean, and that's it. Look, the Caminos told him, don't underestimate them. Crosshair said, don't underestimate my brothers. Everybody they've come across are like, these guys are badasses, and they keep kicking our ass. And still the Empire is like, they're just clones. They can't beat us. And again, Rampart gets basically made a fool of, and he's going to end up at the end of a Force choke. I'm pretty sure it's going to come at some point. I'm hoping that they bring Vader in this, and he Force chokes the hell out of Rampart and knocks him down a peg. But he's basically
Has there been an animated Vader yet?
Yes. Animated Vader at the end of Clone Wars, and he pops up in Rebels, I believe, at one point also. So yeah, there is. So Crosshair's like, hey, remember that trap I told you about remember that distraction I told you about that you were wrong about? You were wrong. Remember that trap I told you I wanted to set? Yeah, we got double crossed. I'm tired of this. I want permission to go hunt them down. And he's like, granted. So these last 2 episodes coming up, Infested and War Mantle, are going to be, I'm hoping that they are like 100% action packed, but it's going to be a hunt for the Bad Batch, and I think that that's going to be problematic because you have 2 episodes to either turn Crosshair, kill Omega, or kill all of the Bad Batch, or the third option, season 2.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Which is what I'm hoping ends up being the actual end to this storyline, is that we do get a season 2. Because at this point, you now have, you've introduced some real big names into the story. We get to see Hera Syndulla, who obviously is going to become more involved in the story should it continue to go on. It gives a link to the time frame and the age of Omega as to like if we know Hera Syndulla survives through Rebels, we know she survives through the first 3 of the trilogy, so 4, 5, and 6.
Is she in that?
She's not in it, but we know that she survives because she's fully grown, and we know that she has a child. So through the stories and the books and stuff like that, we know she lives. Yeah. But the other thing is at the end of she flies a ship called the Ghost, right? And the Ghost has a crew, and her crew is what the story of Rebels is all about. I actually really think you should go and watch it. You will like it.
Eventually I will, yes.
But she has a crew with her of Rebels that live on her ship, the Ghost, that she pilots. And you can see like parallels the fact that like when she was younger, she met Omega, and Omega showed her ship, and that they all live on their ship, and she was impressed by that. And that kind of translates into her having her own crew that lives on her ship, and that they traverse the universe as a family. And it's very much parallel to what she saw with the Bad Batch. And obviously they're able to back end write this in with the Bad Batch because it's easy to do because the other story is established. But at the end of Rise of Skywalker, when they made the call and all the ships show up to help them, remember that?
Yes.
A bunch of the ships that showed up were ships that we know from the stories and legends and Rebels and all these different things, that these ships are people. Like, that means that this person is involved in this fight. And one of the ships that show up is the Ghost, which means it's very possible. Now, we don't know. It could have been her son Jace piloting it. It could have been somebody else, but we know she has a son with Jace. Who, by the way, you know the adult voiced kid in the first episode of Bad Batch?
Yes, Freddie Prinze Jr.
Him and Hera bump uglies and make a kid.
Why'd you have to put it that way?
As adults, they have a kid together. So those two characters have been, we already know what their end story is from the other two shows, but they have a kid. So it either could be that kid piloting the ship or it could be Hera piloting the ship. But we, at this point, know that the Ghost has survived through the end of all of the trilogies at this point, all 6 of them, basically, starting from New Hope. That she survived through there, at least her ship has, and hopefully she's piloting it or Jace is piloting it with her, but that legacy lives on. So it's just it's an extension of the story that I personally, because I know so much about the story from both ends, like, it's really exciting for this episode to have happened. But like you said, for you, it was an episode that happened.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because that was kind of a concern about for me in the beginning of the show, was like, okay, well, I haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, so is there going to be stuff cropping up that I don't understand? Well, this answers that question. Well, it's not the first time either, but it kind of answers that question where, you know, no, you don't have to know, but it certainly helps.
But let's look at it this way too now. So from that standpoint, for someone who's never watched Rebels or Clone Wars, the Clone Wars part is just why the clones were on that planet in the first place. So that one's not as big of a thing that you need to follow. But what this does do is, at this point, you're seeing it from the opposite way. So right now, you're seeing, oh, there's this character on Bad Batch named Hera Syndulla. Her mom and her dad were rebel freedom fighters who helped bring peace to their planet. Then when you start watching Rebels and the first time you see Hera, you're like, oh, that's Hera Syndulla. Her parents were the people on Ryloth from Bad Batch that helped to settle that, to bring peace to the planet. Oh, and that's the daughter that they had that we saw with her with her astromech droid. So you're just coming this from the other side. So when you watch Rebels, you are now informed about what you're seeing in Rebels and what her character's kind of storyline is ahead of time. So you're seeing it from the opposite direction that I'm seeing it. But it was done in a way, to me, that progressed the story and still gave you another plot line to think about moving into the future, but also gives the Bad Batch another set of allies to help them down the road to either hide, survive, or make it through whatever's coming next. So to me, it was a good episode. I'm not going to say it wasn't my favorite episode. I greatly enjoyed the story because of the history behind it. But I would say, to me, it was a good episode. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and I thought it was an okay episode, but hopefully, you know, we've got 2 episodes left. Hopefully we get something figured out after this next episode as to where this path is going. Are we going season 2? Are we going to see them all die next in the final episode? Who knows?
I don't think that'll happen. I think that the way that they're kind of playing this out is, yes, we could, but if you guys really like these guys, we could also continue going. And
they're not going to kill him.
At this point, they're definitely not going to kill him off. But there's going to be
no.
I think maybe they might kill off Crosshair, because just to cause some pain to the group itself. But I think that they could kill off Crosshair and no one would be too upset because they consider him like a traitor. But if they have Omega, they still have their 5 that they started with, and they can have Crosshair. They can memorialize Crosshair like, oh, we had to kill our brother because we had no choice, or maybe he dies realizing that he needs to save his brothers, and he goes down saving Omega. You know, he takes a shot for Omega and dies, and then they can memorialize him as doing the right thing at the end, and them still being able to consider them their brother, and being having that affection for him after his death. So
Right.
we'll see where it goes. But that would be the impactful end to this season, would be to have him go down, and then from then on have Omega kind of like revere him for saving her life and realizing that he fought it off, he became a good guy in the end, and knowing
And
that
then we get to hear about it 1,000 times in the next season.
No, knowing that it wasn't his fault, but then she gets his helmet. And she wears his helmet in reverence. That would be fucking awesome. Like she redoes it.
She just sits in the cockpit wearing a helmet for no reason.
But she repaints it and everything, but it's still his helmet, and she wears it. And maybe it'll have a blaster scorch on it or something like Boba Fett's ding, but she'll wear it in reverence of him, and then they'll finally give her a fucking armor, because she's still running around in just like everyday in an everyday tracksuit during under fire. So they need to give that little girl some armor.
Yeah, hey LL, put the tracksuit away. Let's you might want to get some armor or something.
Wow.
All right, that. Before we go, we do want to let you know we do our show live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. ish on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MillerKing_51. The link is in the description below. And while you're down there looking, please hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications, and give this video a thumbs up, because all that does help the channel and helps us get our voice out there. And so, on behalf of Vic,
that's me.
I'm Corey. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.